my motivation is to be the most sustainable developer in Greater Vancouver.
When I came to Canada 20 years ago, I saw a lot of potential to change the building industry. And coming from Switzerland, there's an affinity to see quality and efficiency in construction, in the processes. There's also a lot of opportunities for companies, Swiss companies, European companies, to come in with their products and sell them here. Locally, this has only really started, I think, really intensely in the last 5 years. There is a lot of openness from the Canadian industry for better products, better engineered, better developed products, and they're also open to learn new things.
It's been 30 years since I've been back to British Columbia, and so much has changed. Vancouver has become a vibrant metropolis with a full skyline, and things don't stop there. Vancouver is also an extremely ambitious city and aims to become the greenest city in the world within the next dozen years or so. In order to do that, it's relying on and hopefully working with its partners in Switzerland. Switzerland has had a historic relationship with Vancouver and British Columbia, helping us gain access into the coastal mountains and the Rockies. Today, we're looking for more. We're looking for your expertise and your innovation with regards to sustainable buildings. We hope to show you today what we have accomplished so far to date, what our ambition is, and how we can work together in order to achieve our lofty goal.
Swiss Real has developed the Exchange building with the vision to be the most sustainable building in Western Canada. Our building has received the sustainability designation of LEED Platinum. As a hydronic system, the ceiling system looks like this. It has penetration, that's a metal, and you see here how they are connected. Each element is connected with a pipe, and these are the copper pipes here. And the copper pipes are the best, of course, as you know, for transmitting heat and cooling. And in summer it's cold water, in winter it's warm water. Every office has fresh air. You see the opening here, and it's a vacuum on the floor. It's not pressurized, and the air comes up and circulates and goes through the ceiling out. And the hot air or cold air comes from the top down.
Okay.
And it's also very innovative. The rainwater harvesting is for recycling, meaning for the washrooms. And this is under the elevators. You have the shafts, and the elevators don't go 7 floors down. From the second floor, from P2 down to P7, we have water tanks. And this is pumped up for the washroom. We had excellent engineers, and with Credit Suisse, it was really always, they wanted to have a so-called superior, somebody checking our system from Swiss engineers. We have from BC Hydro certification and from our mechanical engineers that we are using 65% less energy than any other comparable new building.
Franz and his team faced some challenges. They had to import much of the building products and expertise from Europe. But the exchange set a new standards and helped pave the road for what was to come next.
Hiring architects within the local community that are familiar with Passivhaus, that are familiar with high-performance design standards, that have learned from those European models and models done elsewhere and are now bringing them into the local environment. And then we couple that with ready access to high-quality wood and high-quality materials that are starting to find a space in the Vancouver marketplace. From a products and services perspective, choice is really what we need in Canada now. We do have access to a lot of passive and high-performance materials, but it's still a very limited supply. And so we have issues with supply chain, we have issues with availability, and certainly we have issues with price. And the more availability of materials, whether they're formally certified materials or they're just high-performance building materials, the more opportunity we have to drive down cost, increase choice, and deliver buildings more quickly and effectively.
We are here at the night residence. So on the outside here, we can see really well the exterior insulation panels and also the brick anchors. This is going to get all clad in brick. So these are the brick ties that hold the bricks back structurally so they don't fall over. So here we are on the upper level of the residence. This is going to be the living room eventually. And it's a good spot to see how we build our walls here. So we got 20 millimeters of wood stud here with a plywood 12.5 millimeters. Outside of that we got some insulation boards. So it's mineral wool 50 millimeters. And we also have a Siga MyVest waterproof membrane. This is eventually going to get filled with dense packed cellulose insulation here. That's recycled newspaper. And then we're also going to add a vapor retarder membrane to the inside of that. That's going to take care of our vapor control. Over here we see our window components. These are imported from Austria. It's quite difficult to get local windows to this quality. So we got a triple glazed unit with all the appropriate low E coatings. We got this lovely wood frame that's thermally broken. And together with the European hardware, this makes it a really airtight and high performance window. So here we are in my favorite room in the building, the mechanical room. And really what is the most exciting thing in here is this unit right here, the Magic Box. Imported from Europe, nothing like that exists yet in Canada. So we have ventilation system, heat pump, generating heating and cooling, and also generating domestic hot water. On the ventilation side, we see all these white flex pipes here on the ceiling. That's quite common in Europe. So again, European system that we have been using for a while. So that's nothing really new. It's based on manifold system. So there's home runs to each of the rooms. So there's no sound transmission. And then on the heating side, we got an in-floor system. So at concrete topping over top of the wood frame, the pipes are embedded for heating and cooling. And then over here, the end of the mechanical room here, we see a stainless steel hot water tank that's storing the domestic hot water. British Columbia has some interesting challenges, but the solutions are starting to become very apparent.
When we look to Europe and other countries and what they're doing, we have a long ways to go, but it also gives us a lot of flexibility to sort of chart and find our own path.
Because Vancouver is the only city in Canada that has their own Charter of Rights, they are actually managed to increase the performance levels of the building code independently. Through that, they influence the national building code, and also the provincial BC building code. When we look back at this new chapter in Canadian sustainability, the Austrian Passivhaus really was a pivotal project. It showed what was possible and inspired innovation and building code changes.
Austrian Passivhaus group, they were initially starting this project in Austria, and then there was a construction company, there was the window company, and then we had even the roof tiles, and then inside everything, the HRV system, everything came from Austria, and I was very impressed how they shipped every single piece in containers on site.
That the Austria House was the first passive house in Canada, and so that was a big deal, and we used to run all kinds of tours. People came up, and by the tens and sometimes a whole busload would come, and they would come and see first passive house in Canada. One of the reasons that they came was some of the products that the Europeans were building out of wood we were not familiar with. The Austrian Passivhaus was built out of, if you look on the inside here, this is a mass timber wall. We call it in Canada now a DLT, which is essentially taking like a 2x4 and you're really attaching all of these things with beech dowels, and you're making a structural panel out of that. So there's all kinds of reasons that we use wood. Then the other thing, if you look at the very first CLTs that were ever used in North America, came with the Austria house. And the DLT I always think it's a bit like plywood on steroids. So it's just taking a whole bunch of 2x4s and 2x6s and cross-laminating them and making big structural panels, to the point that UBC, they built a building 2 years ago, essentially using DLT and glue lams. It was 18 stories tall.
And it was completely brought over by the Austrians to showcase their technology for high-performance building and wood processing and mass timber products.
You know, so before we got all excited about building, et cetera, in a new type of building physics, if you will, you need to have some sort of buy-in, right? There has to be a reason where you go, okay, we call it your eureka moment, I call it my holy shit moment type of thing. And really it was, the house was at lockup. They'd just done the blower door test. It was about minus 10 degrees outside and plus 10 degrees inside the building. I walked in, I was the first one in the building, and there's a tiny little heater that you would put under your desk, kind of the size of a hairdryer. And that's all that's heating this 300 square meter building. And at that moment, I figured this actually works, right? That's the moment that you realize it's not just kind of cool because it fit and because of all that stuff, or they did it out of wood, but because it actually works.
We're going to see Mateo's facility here in the background in a bit, inspired by this first kind of seed planted by the Austrians 10 years ago.
So I guess really what we did is we saw it works. We saw they have wood. We saw they pretty much have very similar sort of building practices that we have. So that was pretty easy to exchange. There's no point bringing wood from over there, but kind of some of this knowledge transfer makes sense. So, and that's kind of what we did. We brought some of the knowledge over, and we used the products that we could over here, and the products that we couldn't get locally, we brought them in. Canada is a country that produces wood, and we export wood all over the world, so we don't bring wood to Canada, but there are certain things that we use in our buildings, like tapes and foils. Some of the glazing products come from Europe and Switzerland. Some of the HRV, the mechanical systems, those are the types of things that come from Europe. A lot of the equipment that we're using, specifically for producing our materials, for assembling them, for the saws for cutting, the computer-operated saws, those tend to come from Europe and Switzerland.
If you think about it, if you want to turn around the building industry in less than 10 years to go from something that's very inefficient to high efficient, a lot has to happen, and the materials are a big part of that. So Mateo, beautiful building. So how come you started building this? What's the story behind it?
Well, obviously this is a bit of a dream to get here, but it took us a while we didn't just instantly start building passive houses. That was certainly an idea. We went to Europe a number of times. We saw that this is the type of thing they did in Europe. And then we thought, how can we transition this technology and do the same thing over here? In fact, our biggest challenge was we had no customers that actually wanted a passive house. So we had to find a customer that would actually order a passive house. We didn't find that customer, so ultimately what we did is my wife and business partner, we bought a property and designed and built what became Canada's first residential passive house. And we built off the success of that place. We had it registered in Darmstadt, Germany to prove that we could do it. First of all, you can do it with Canadian products, you can do it with Canadian labor, sort of Canadian know-how with some coaching from Europe. And some of the products obviously we brought in from Europe. I mean, all the tapes and those things, those specialty products we brought in. And then we kind of built on the success of that project. And we built out of a very small shop. And once we realized that this is possible and this was starting to have a bit of legs, we envisioned this building, and we actually had a couple of partners join us, and it made this building possible. We had to make a choice when we're building the building. Is this going to be a steel building? Is this going to be a big fabric tent? What are we going to build? We knew we were wood guys, and we knew it was somewhat important to showcase wood. So you'll see that it's basically a post and beam building. It's a pretty standard wood frame roof structure. But these are some of the earlier CLTs that were built in Canada. And so essentially you'll look at the structure. It's a 6-meter rhythm that we have in the bents, and so we have 12-meter CLTs that essentially form the structure. So behind us, where we were in the boardroom, and then upstairs we have the offices. Those are essentially Passivhaus standard.
And you have a very interesting way you're heating your factory space here, because it gets quite cold up here in the winter. Can we have a look at that over there?
Yeah, so we can look at that. What we do is we have all the waste. We have a problem with some of the offcuts. So what do we do with that? So we grind up the offcuts, and we actually heat the building with the offcuts.
So as we've seen on the other side, you have quite a lot of wood waste, obviously, and that goes into a hopper, and it comes through this auger thing, and then it ends up somehow in this box, right? And what happens then?
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, we're in a winter climate.
Yeah.
We have the advantage, we have the disadvantage if we have waste. You pointed that out.
Yeah.
But with the waste, we can actually make heat, right? So we've actually opted for this. This is a European boiler. I think it comes from Austria. But what's really nice about this is a fully automated system. It will call for heat. It fires up the auger, dumps it a bin, injects air, and burns it.
Perfect.
So we'll heat this whole 40,000 square foot building with this little boiler.
Excellent. And then you have a hot water storage tank over here. We can see on this side, right?
Yeah, and we got about 1,000 gallons of just storage, hot water storage.
And the heating is all within the concrete floor of the whole.
Yeah, so this is all in-floor heat,
Yeah.
and this will keep us at a very comfortable working temperature. So we really are not buying any propane to heat our building.
Mateo's Passivhaus manufacturing facility illustrates the viability of the long-term market in British Columbia. Canada is going to need Swiss skills, experience, mentorship, and investment to expedite things here. Swiss companies could even consider laying some roots down themselves and take advantage of Canadian incentives to do so. I'm very excited to see what the local building landscape will look like in 10 years. We are currently just at the start of the high-performance building revolution. And with that, there is an increasing need for more products and experience. Canada has a ways to go to achieve the new Building Zero emission goals by 2030. But British Columbia is spearheading this push and the potential to inspire the world to reach the same standard. And that's an outcome that we can all get behind.
We hope that you'll be able to join us in the near future, as early as spring 2021, to come see for yourselves on the ground what's happening here with regards to sustainable buildings. Until then, arrivederci and goodbye.